Hi everyone, welcome to the YAM Podcast. My name is Nala Hathbeen and I am your host. Today we have a lovely mama joining us today. One of the Singaporean OGs. Mamas, we love her. We're super excited to welcome her back so that she can have her own solo show. Honestly, all of these moms in Singapore are amazing. They have amazing personal stories themselves, and each of them have stories of how they educate their children at home, like all very different, all very spiritual and super fascinating. So I cannot wait for us to dive deep. Enjoy. Hi everyone, welcome to the YAM Podcast. My name is Nal Hathbeen and I am going to be your host today and actually every episode. Today we have a very wonderful guest, a guest that we had on the podcast previously for season 2, episode 1 of the podcast, Megna Mystery. I always want to say Mystery, but it's Mystery. It's exactly how it's spelled. And she was a part of the Singaporean mama groups, and we're super excited to have her on solo with us to share her own individual story in more depth and all the things that she does with her kids. I think the first question that I want to begin with is, what was your pregnancy like? Because the way you described it, it was really like a scene from hell. We say that pregnancies are not easy, but I think your pregnancy was just like, I want to say Armageddon or like some other like crazy movie, but it was hardcore and intense. And I don't think I've ever heard anyone else's pregnancy to be this awful. First, share with us, what were you doing before you got pregnant, and then how your pregnancy impacted what you were doing?
Sure. Okay. So I've had 2 pregnancies
Yeah.
because I have a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old. So with the first pregnancy, I was working full time. My background was in fashion, retail, marketing for many years. And at the time when I got pregnant with my daughter, Indra, I was actually working in a fashion tech startup based out of Bangkok, but I live in Singapore. So basically, I was traveling back and forth.
Wow.
I used to fly out every Monday and then fly back every Thursday because my husband was here. I would go to Bangkok for the week and try and squeeze this 5-day week into 4 days and then come back. And then I think it was not even a year into when I'd started my role that I got pregnant with Indra. You could say it was planned. We wanted to start a family. We knew that was the right time. I didn't know how long it would take, and it happened pretty quickly. It was unexpected in that regard. Yeah, like yourself, I'm an optimist, right? And so I had all these visions and ideas of what pregnancy would be like
Yeah.
and how I would manage my work with being pregnant and the travel, and it would just be really easy to do that. And I would keep on, I would really stay on top of my health. At the time I was trained, like when I would come home at the weekends, I was training and I would do my yoga, all that kind of stuff. And so I felt like I was physically fit, in a good place. I was ready for the pregnancy. And yeah, all of those things went out of the window, basically, because I got pregnant. And I think within about sort of the initial weeks, obviously, same as everyone else, you don't really feel very different. And then I think it was around like the 6-week mark. That was it. Things changed very dramatically. I started vomiting profusely. I was like blacking out. It was not a pretty sight. And so when I went to see my gynecologist, she diagnosed me with hyperemesis, Gravidarum. I started experiencing like extreme nausea, vomiting. I'm talking like throughout the day, 25 times a day. I'd never ever, I'm not a puker. Like I don't generally do that. Like not even after a big night out. So it was very new to me, the whole feeling of like vomiting so much. Yeah, absolutely. And as a result of anyone who's had hyperemesis, which is what I then realized I had, hyperemesis gravidarum, will tell you is that kind of constant vomiting and constant nausea, it has lots of other kind of little things, side effects, a lot of pain and discomfort, a lot of reflux, chest pain, all of that kind of stuff. So then I guess what happened, that was the beginning, if you like. And I just kept reading everywhere and people kept telling me, just hold on in there, just hang in there, because it's only going to last 3 months. All of this kind of vomiting and stuff just goes away after 3 months. yeah, it was really intense. Obviously, for those 3 months, I was obviously, as I said, I was working, and actually, I hadn't told my boss that I was pregnant at this point because I was still
Oh,
quite new to the company.
mm,
I was still quite new to the company, and I had a lot of
Jesus.
responsibility. I had a lot of responsibility. I was managing teams. I was getting familiar with the role still. It was quite a big role, a big, chunky, meaty role where I was managing different new departments and areas, and expecting to give guidance and expertise in areas I didn't really have prior in-depth knowledge and experience of. So usually when you start a role like that, you go home and you're reading and all that.
Yeah.
I was just like I was like getting into my hotel because I was staying in hotels, getting into my hotel room, literally just like letting it all out, and then getting into bed, and then listening to meditations and kirtans to try
Letting
and,
it all out,
just
meaning
kind
like
of,
crying or
yeah,
like vomiting or both?
vomiting. I think like vomiting. I think in the initial weeks, maybe there was a bit more of the crying. And I think as time goes on, there's acceptance kind of sets in, right? Even though I felt at that time still like 3 months, as soon as I would hit the 3 month mark, it would stop. I accepted that this was part of my pregnancy. So I was, okay, I'm just going to be vomiting. I got to the 3 month mark, and no, it wasn't going anywhere. And
So
it was a real joke.
what so when you went to the doctor and he
Yeah.
diagnosed you with, or he or she diagnosed you with, what was it called again?
Hyperemesis gravidarum.
Hyperemesis gravidarum. So what is this condition? Is this a condition that everyone can have? Is it expected to only be 3 months? Like, what is the actual, what is it for people who don't know, including myself?
Yeah, it's obviously a pregnancy condition. Although there's kind of studies to say that it is genetic and it does pass through families. And I think that may have been the case for me. I've also known people where it wasn't in families, and it was just very unexpected. It's basically extreme vomiting and nausea throughout your pregnancy. Some people can have it in the initial few months and then it
goes away.
But in many cases, it doesn't. It continues right through to the very end because it's almost like a hormone imbalance to some degree. It's your body's way of dealing with this foreign thing that's going on inside of you, this pregnancy. You're giving all of your kind of energy and everything you have to nurturing this child and this baby, but then your body can't actually support you. So it's an interesting one because when you're going through it, so only 1% of women experience hyperemesis from what stats say. And so it's not a common illness to have. So what I did find is that many sort of functional medicine doctors are not that well versed on it. Therefore, treatments that are offered are not necessarily always suitable. There can be quite a lot of the medications and things can be quite intense, quite aggressive on the system. So you're taking things and there's a lot of fear. You're taking all these meds before you get pregnant. You're always reading that you shouldn't take anything while you're pregnant, right? Other than supplements. And then you go to the doctor. And with my second pregnancy, I was like in and out of hospital throughout, and on bed rest basically for, I'd say, the best parts, like 7 months effectively.
So you had it twice?
My second pregnancy. Yeah. So think about hyperemesis. That's the other thing. I had it the first time round, and I was like, you should just see me in the gym. I was like really working out. I was like mentally preparing myself, and I was adamant it was not going to happen again. It was just like not going to happen. And I convinced myself I was in a different mindset. Yeah. So it's that thing, and you always talk about this. It's control. That's the realization with pregnancy. It's that you're not in control. You can prepare yourself as much as you like, but your body decides for you. It's how your body reacts to what's happening. Yeah. And the second time round was worse.
And do they say with the condition, it's if you have it once that you're likely to have it again? Or is it just like sometimes it's a one-off thing? It's if you had it once, it's likely for every pregnancy, that's what's going to happen to you.
But the optimist in me didn't even bother reading about what would happen second time. I just thought that
it's okay. We're going to plow through.
Not even that. I was like, I'm more prepared this time.
Yeah.
The first time around, I was working in Bangkok and I ended up leaving that job 6 months. So I left that job after I had my daughter because I was on maternity leave. I was staying in Singapore, and it was that realization that I had maybe 6 months in that I was going to really struggle to be traveling back and forth to Bangkok and having this 6-month-old baby. Yeah. And so, at that point, I made a decision to leave that position. And second time around, I was at home.
So your condition lasted the whole pregnancy, or did it actually stop at 3 months?
No, throughout. So I had them like to the date and time of birth. It's a crazy, weird thing. The human body is
as soon as the parasite left your body. Like you were fine.
Yeah. The human body is a magnificent thing in the sense that it's just so intelligent, because the minute I had C-sections with both kids, so I was like fully awake and everything and very present during both births, and both births were amazing, actually, two of the best experiences of my life. But the minute this baby was lifted out of my body, I've had C-sections and I couldn't really feel very much at that time, but the minute the feeling started to come back, like, I just didn't feel sick anymore. It was really gross, but throughout my pregnancy, I couldn't control my saliva. Obviously, none of us, we can't control our saliva. What I meant is that when saliva would come up, if I swallowed my saliva, I would vomit. And so I used to do this really gross thing where I would carry a glass around with me. I would spit into the glass and then have a cover on it, so it wasn't so gross for everybody else. And like the minute both kids were taken out of me, that was it. It was just gone. Everything just disappeared overnight. So it was definitely an experience. And it's funny because they say you don't remember the pain, and I think even though at the time somebody said that to me as well, they said to me, don't worry, you'll forget, this will all be gone. And I remember thinking at the time, you have no idea what I'm going through, and you have no idea what you're talking about, because I will remember every feeling. I have felt this feeling every single day, 9 months kind of thing. But now that you're asking me, and because I didn't realize that you were going to be asking me before, we kind of set this chat up, I don't remember it. I mean, I don't remember those feelings. I don't remember the pain, and I don't remember the sort of anxiety and the constant. And I know I had them. I can label the emotions and the feelings because I was very much in touch with what was going on at the time, but it doesn't stay with me. What has stayed with me is the kids that came out of the experience, which I'm obviously so grateful. And one thing somebody did ask me recently is a conversation with a friend, and she was asking me if I'd have a third child. And I was absolutely no. And she said to me, what if you could guarantee that you wouldn't have hyperemesis the third time? Would you then consider getting pregnant? And my answer was no, because actually I think what I have, my family dynamic and the two kids that I have, and I'm extremely grateful for. And I feel that everything happens for a reason, and didn't happen to me. It was meant to be like part of my journey. And it was a critical part of my motherhood journey, actually. And it was the beginning of parenthood for me, because obviously parenthood starts after you have the children, right? You're pregnant and then you become a mother. Obviously you're a mother when you're carrying a child. You really feel parenting really kicks in once you have the child. But I think for me, maybe the fact that I was having these struggles throughout, and I had to really work on myself. I had to do a lot of work on myself. I had to really sit with myself in deep reflection and really pull out a lot of tools from within and practices that I developed, the spiritual practices during that time. So develop these practices, and that's what got me through those pregnancies. But it's also played such a huge, significant role in the parent that I became, and the parent and the person that I am today, actually. I wouldn't ever change. Weirdly, I wouldn't change the experience. I don't, and I think that's why I don't remember the pain, because I don't resent that pain or that experience. It was meant for me. And your question was how?
Yeah, like how do you think that situation, was it just like the awfulness of the situation that made you seek for other answers and other ways for you to reach a sense of solace? I think it actually had a lot to do with what you're doing now, and like how all of that, because I remember last time when I spoke with you, you shared how it was almost directly related to the Virtues Project in some way. And I forgot how exactly, but you were like, this whole experience just made you shift your perspectives of what you thought was important in life. Like before, you were working in fashion and marketing. And then after you had your kids, you felt like you couldn't do that job anymore. And like the things that you went into after having gone that experience, it was more towards educating your children and optimizing their education in the best way that you could. And those things, new things that you were learning, no longer reflected like the old you. Like even after your kids got a little older and you could go to work, you didn't choose to go back to that previous line of work, right? It was more like something new that you wanted to try to create, and something new in that sense. So yeah.
Yeah, it was a real shift in perspective for me, that pregnancy. I think I felt a real deep sense of gratitude afterwards. One of the quotes or mottos that we use with the kids is, don't focus on what you don't have, be grateful for what you do have. And I think it was that don't focus on the struggles, focus on where you are now and what you have, which is these little human beings, and where you're all going to go from here and how you're going to grow together.
I'm actually really interested to hear and for you to share with the other moms, what are the things that you do now with your kids that are like helping them and other moms have asked you? Because I just want to remind the rest of the listeners, if you don't remember, Meg and I are in a Bhagavad Gita class together. So we are studying like sacred scriptures and sacred Hindu scriptures. And I'm definitely taking note for what I'm going to do with my kids in the future. But Meg is like a live example of like how she uses the teachings in various ways with her kids, and also like the various trainings you've done. So just let people know, what were the kind of things that you decided to go into after this crazy experience? And how has that like changed and reframed your ideas of parenting?
So after I had the kids, I have a lovely community of friends here in Singapore and of mums who you also know very well. And Sapna and Chloe, obviously, we were on the podcast together last season. And Sapna's a really dear friend of mine who I've known for many years. And she, like, virtues and the concept of virtues was something she talked about a lot. And so I was always interested in this idea and this concept, but it was one of those things, like pre-kids, my focus was very much on my career and growing professionally. I just didn't make that time for myself to really focus on my personal growth as much in that way, because I had quite challenging roles. And I think in all the roles that I had, I always felt quite out of my depth. So I always felt like I had a lot to do and learn. And I always felt like other people around me were able to just get on with their jobs and grasp things very quickly. I have massive imposter syndrome. It's something I've struggled with all my life, and it really has held me back in the working environment. And so I'm glad not to be going back into that after I'd had the kids. I didn't really want to go back into that kind of space mentally, as well as physically being there. I was just feeling like I was in a very different place. As I mentioned before, I developed certain spiritual practices and things along the way. And I was just feeling like I needed something very different. And I think at that time, also being a new mum, I really felt out of my depth there as well. It felt like I really didn't know what I was doing there. But I didn't want to be in that situation where I felt like I was failing, or I felt inadequate, or I didn't have the right tools to support me and support the kids through the process. And so I joined, obviously, the Virtues family, as we call ourselves, through Sapna, as we talked about last time. And then through that's basically how I then got involved in the Virtues Project. And I just trained as a Virtues Project facilitator or coach. And the Virtues Project is a character education program that inspires the daily practice of virtues. And the word virtue literally means moral excellence. We say that our virtues are the positive qualities that are within us. So that's everything from love, kindness, compassion, justice, integrity, service, etc. And so the program is designed to help us to develop and demonstrate those qualities and our best qualities, and raise our awareness, raise our moral standards, our virtues, and with excellence. And the project is ultimately about creating a culture of strong character within our homes, schools, businesses, communities. And the idea that with a more elevated mindset, with heightened awareness, and through engaging certain practices and principles, we can live by our highest values and ultimately live more authentic, meaningful lives, and also build strong communities and societies. I really believe that the Virtues Project is a very powerful tool for cultivating community. It's when we activate our virtues, if you like, when we put them into action, in the way that we communicate with ourselves, the way that we communicate with people around us, it really improves our relationships quite dramatically. Our intentions are different. We think and speak and act more mindfully, and we give out like positive and uplifting energy. It's then what we receive back is the same energy. We're creating karmic accounts. If we practice this in every relationship, with every person within our community, for example, it not only strengthens bonds, but it sets the foundations for a strong, resilient community, which is focused on unity and service and love. And when we do the opposite, when we give out negative energy with hurtful words or actions, of course, then we can expect to receive the same back. This sets the tone for a very different community or even no community. I really believe that practicing our virtues every day allows us to really demonstrate that generosity of spirit, truest and purest form. And it draws in like the best crowds, if you like. And then I guess what then I did with that is I was already involved with the virtues group in the form of children's classes, which we talked about before, my kids and many other sort of amazing children within our community. A group of us, we teach together, very much together. So there's like a structure to the class, which is we all gather in each other's homes in a circle. To start with, we listen to a meditation, we sing prayers together, we learn quotes, we talk about the virtues. It could be like kindness, cooperation, honesty, gratitude, service, whatever we're focusing on that week. And then we try to make sessions really interactive as well with role plays, puppet shows. We tell stories. There's always a craft activity as well. We weave in different festivals as well, like Diwali and Christmas, for instance, are huge festivals in our home. Like we really deck the halls, and we commemorate other festivals as well, Holi, Navratri, Thanksgiving, etc. And we also celebrate a lot of the other holy days of other faiths, like Sikh, Baha'i, with our Virtues family, with all of the other children in our classes. But festivals are no longer just a celebration, but like an opportunity for us to highlight and celebrate and demonstrate our virtues, like our valuable qualities. Like an example, like in recent weeks, like for Thanksgiving, we made thankfulness trees. Nice. We decorated like little ornaments, and we listed all the things that we're really thankful for within our lives. And for Christmas, we made, and this is actually a project I did at home with my kids, is that we did a 25-day acts of kindness advent calendar. So my kids wanted like an advent calendar with chocolates in it, but instead we listed like 25 acts of kindness, and then every time they go out and they do an act of kindness, and they get a chocolate or a sweet. And previously in like virtues classes, we've done, for example, when we've been doing about service with the kids, we've got involved in like community projects like tree planting and beach cleanups, food drives, and so on. I feel like the kids really develop a very different understanding of the festival. It's no longer just about the commercial rituals, decorating the house and dressing up and exchanging gifts. It's no longer about the gifts that we exchange. It's all about how we give back, what we give back.
Now, I would love to hear about your bedtime routine in particular. That's something that I want to know, like every single detail, because I think it's really interesting. And I think the other moms are going to be really fascinated by this. It's going to give them ideas, as many ideas as I can present on the YAM podcast. Like, I would love that. I find your bedtime routines to be really cool. So please break it down for us. What do you do at home with the kids every night?
Sure. Okay. So can I start with where it comes from, actually? Because,
I was going to ask you, like, each of the things that you do with your kids, I want to know why you do it. What is the basis of which you do it, and like, where does it come from in that sense?
Sure. Okay. Because obviously we started talking about the pregnancy and how that kind of was the beginning of the journey for me. And then obviously I trained as a virtues coach. And so I think through all of this, what's happened is I've adopted / created my own parenting approach or style, if you like. And it's a combination of conscious / mindful / virtues parenting. Yeah. And what that means is that it's ultimately about building a strong family unit and empowering our children. And this is not just something that I do. We talk a lot about the community and the community that I'm a part of and the rest of the virtues family. This is like very much shared values and ideas. A lot of the ideas and things that are part of our routine come from the rest of the group. It's really about learning from each other and growing together and really supporting each other, the motherhood journey. And that's so important. I feel beyond grateful for having that is like the overarching pillar in my sort of motherhood and our parenting journey. But it's about really building a strong family unit and empowering the children by firstly transforming myself and ourselves through raising our self-awareness. I'll get on to how that comes about. And then healing and growing and rising from our own negative experiences and maybe dysfunctional family relationships to plant new seeds for our children, raising our child's awareness of their strong positive qualities, like their virtues, we call the gifts within, and educating them on the meaning and the kind of value of their virtues. And then watching them put these into practice and companioning them as they face the different challenges they go through in life. So rather than trying to protect them from challenges or problem solving for them, it's trusting that they'll find their way and allowing them to manifest their own destinies with our love, our guidance, our healthy values, our support, and with spiritual education. It's teaching confidence, courage, adaptability, assertiveness, and compassion for themselves and for others, teaching them to do the right thing, not just the right thing, but to do the right thing when no one's looking, promoting honesty, integrity, and nobility, and leading by example, teaching our children to communicate respectfully and peacefully with each other and build strong, trusting relationships from them seeing our own. So my relationship with my husband and my relationship with my family and extended family and friends, that's what they see, because ultimately they are just a reflection of us to some degree in the earlier years as well. And empowering them to be responsible for their own actions, to learn from their mistakes, to choose differently next time, and instilling self-discipline through respect, cooperation, and also by setting very clear boundaries with relevant consequences, not just like what we feel is appropriate at that time. So I would say that like my parenting approach is not really, it's not something that like, it's ongoing. Yeah, for sure. It's ongoing. I'm definitely no expert, and I like could not express that. Like it could not be any clearer with that. I am learning just as much as every person, like watching and listening, but it's more of a process and a journey that requires like commitment to constant personal growth, and then learning, like reading, and like living in a state of consciousness, and being like 100% present with the kids and creating like very special, valuable opportunities for them to grow every day. And I guess, and going back to where it started, is that it started and it starts. And I say it started because I developed it very much during pregnancy, but then every day, because this is an ongoing thing, it starts every day with my own spiritual and personal growth practice, starting my days with meditation, yoga, daily reflection through journaling, reading, self-study, virtues.
In the mornings, you do that with yourself?
I like to start the day with my meditation, some breath work, and then I usually do some form of reflection using virtues cards. So I'll pull out a virtue for that day and I'll reflect a little bit on how that speaks to me today or how that's relevant for me right now. Sometimes with an affirmation card, for instance, I'll reflect on a quote from the Gita. And you know how we always talk about manifestation and being in tune with the universe without sounding narcissistic in any way. I always feel like all the messages that I receive are always meant for me. They're always exactly what I needed to hear at that time to help me face whatever challenge there is for me. You know what I mean?
I didn't even think that's narcissistic. It revolves around me. Everything is there to help me. But I like the self-reflection of you thinking that it's narcissistic. I'm like, I need to go deeper on that for myself. I'm going to need to be like, oh, it's possible that it's not for me. I was like, what? I've never thought of that before. What a foreign concept. But yeah, good point. Good point, girl.
Yeah.
Good point.
And so then also I mentioned obviously our group, right? The Virtues family. So we often gather, when you talk about you asked about study. So we often study together with our kind of spiritual community, I'd like to call them. And I guess they're basically like an extension of our Virtues family. It's like anyone who's interested in spirituality, personal growth is welcome to join. Together with this group, we share learnings through Virtues classes. A lot of us are teachers, meditation circles, study groups, regular like devotionals, prayer gatherings where we do kirtans together, and we call it satsang. We talk about satsang in the Gita, reflection, workshops, and then service projects. And I feel that having a group that you can strongly identify with on a spiritual level, it really deepens my thirst for knowledge, and it really guides me on my spiritual journey. And I feel like it's really escalated my personal growth and ultimately expanded my capacity to serve my family and my community better.
So you were saying that the
And
evening routine that you're doing,
yeah. So it
it's huge.
starts.
It starts with yourself. It starts with
Yeah.
meditation, it
Yeah.
starts with breath work, starts with
Yeah.
reflection,
And then I
pulling
do
out
like,
affirmation cards and stuff like that. That's
yeah.
what you do
And then
for
like
yourself. And when do you do
yes.
that?
And then throughout the day. So it starts with all of the things I mentioned. And then like I do, so for example, because I'm also doing bits of work, I'm also like on the side, I'm working in a sustainable fashion startup. That's for another day. That's quite intense. There's a lot going on with that. And I'm also I'd still call myself like a full-time mother in the
Yeah.
sense that I'm like I wake up with the kids, I get them to school, then they're at school for a big chunk of the day, but then the minute they get home, then I'm with them.
Yeah.
Work when they're with me, like when they're
Yeah.
around. So then I'm with them until they go to bed, until
Yeah.
we've done our bedtime routine and
Yeah.
they're asleep. And then I get back onto my work and
Mm.
back on my laptop and then finish off the things I need to do.
So when do you do your
So
own
I fit,
personal practices?
yeah, so then I fit into yogas at lunchtime. So I do yoga at
Oh.
lunchtimes. And at the moment, I can only manage 3 times a week. But it's
Mm.
really important for me. And when I'm not doing yoga, I just fit in stretches and stuff because
Yeah.
I guess off the back of my pregnancy, I have a whole host of health issues and
Yeah.
chronic back pain and stuff that I've been left with. So I really do need to spend time to really work on myself and really look after my health
Mm.
and well-being and all of that as well. And then in the evenings, and again, this is where the kids practice stems from, but then also for myself, I really believe, and there's a lot of science out there now that backs this, that the last hour of your day
Mm.
before you sleep is the most powerful, right? For when it comes to reflection, retaining information, and setting yourself up for a more successful day. Following day, I also try to end my day with journaling, reflection, and listening to meditation right before I go to bed, or like a choose from one of the various different sort of mantras on my I have a Spotify home prayer list, if you like. And so then I pull something off there.
It's like for
And
people who don't know what it is.
so the word Gita comes from the Bhagavad Gita, means song of God, right? So all the various different mantras, hymns, prayers that have come from there and from Vedic scriptures. And it's not just within Hinduism, there's the mantras and obviously within Buddhism and the other faiths as well. It's like prayer sung in song form. So that's something that I listen to, and then it's part of my practice with the kids as well. And I guess my practice has helped me to transform myself from the person that I was, kids, to hopefully a more aware, mindful, conscious, more knowledgeable person and parent today.
Mm.
And it's this transformation and like this constant learning journey that I'm on with my kids. Because I call myself a teacher in the virtues classes, but I don't believe that I'm like my kids' teacher. And this is where I follow the conscious parenting approach. I feel like my kids are my teacher, like they're
Mm.
teaching me. So I'm on this like obviously constant learning journey with the kids. And I think that this journey is what nurtures and empowers the kids to live, to learn, to grow, and to develop their character. And then that's why I think that my practice helped me to really create a more effective practice with the kids. The practice I have with the kids is what I call a combination of spiritual practice, character education, and meaningful family time. And it's basically like our bedtime routine. I call it golden hour because I feel like, as I said before, that hour before you sleep is the most powerful hour of the day. It's the most valuable hour. And so for the kids, I call it golden hour. And my daughter's obsessed with anything metallic and glittery and sparkly. So I don't know, there's something about golden hour that she really loves and resonates with. But it's genuinely my favorite hour of the day with them. And it's a very sacred and special time of the day. And it basically involves breath work, chanting ohms, which is the sound of the universe. And we really love like chanting them together. And the vibrations that we feel when we chant them together are quite powerful, as well as like soothing, calming, and really connecting. We listen to a meditation. We'll read stories, of course. So they're books, and those books don't necessarily have to be anything virtues related or anything. It's just their books. It's like their library books, basically, and books that they've chosen, as well as books that may be virtues related as well. And then after we read the stories, like we really dissect them and we really talk about them. Like we go through what we learned from them, how we could adopt like these learnings in day to day. So then even if it's not a book about like virtues, like in any shape or form, you can relate everything in some way or other, because there's 52 virtues, for example, with the kid that, that we teach the kids. Then there's like gratitude practice. So we share one thing that we feel grateful for that day. And then we do something called the rose, thorn, bud approach. So we do reflection with that. So it's basically naming one positive experience from the day or something good that happened that day. So that's the rose. A negative experience from the day, so the thorn. And then like the goal. So like reflecting on what the learning was, how we could improve, how we can try again tomorrow. And that's the bud. And then we'll reflect on a virtue. So whatever virtue that we're doing in the classes, we'll also talk a little bit about that virtue. And because I think with kids, it's about repetition, right? So I feel that going to the class and then just learning about virtue isn't enough. It's then really every day talking about that virtue again and again. And every conversation that you have, and every time we talk about it, it's different, because it sparks like a different idea or a different perspective on that virtue, or a different way of looking at it. Or it could be like one day it could be focused on that, how we can demonstrate that virtue ourselves within, and another day it could be about how we do that with our friends at school, or with our teachers, or in a challenging situation, like if your child is being bullied or is struggling with their confidence because they need to do a presentation or whatever it is. So like yesterday evening, we talked a lot about confidence, because my daughter's doing it's my daughter's end of year, like her school performance, like play. So we talked a lot about confidence. And it wasn't like she wasn't telling me that she wasn't feeling confident, or that she's like not prepared for the day. But it's like that intuition that, look, she's going to be on stage today with all of her friends and her classmates, and it's going to be a lot of parents, coming to watch. And I just wanted to like really have the idea of confidence at top of mind. And then we close with like a prayer, or or listen to a kirtan before we go to bed, before they eventually fall asleep. And I feel that these practices, like, they're a dedicated time for us to really talk about like virtues and gratitude and reflect on all of these things, but also to give quite like specific and personalized gratitude towards one another as well. Because we often, like when we're talking about the virtues, we often talk about like a time when we might have demonstrated it. Like my daughter will talk about a time when I demonstrated a certain virtue. I'll talk about when my son demonstrated a certain virtue. And then like overall, I think that I just feel that these practices just set the kids up, and myself obviously as well, for a better day ahead, as well as like a calmer night. It gets them ready for school. It helps them with their focus. It helps them to manage their moods and emotions better. And ultimately, I feel that it's these practices that build their sort of self-awareness and their relationship with themselves. It strengthens their connection with themselves, spiritually, with God, and our connection as a family as well, as souls, and as well as strengthening their bonds with other people and community and society overall. I think that my practice evolved and helped me to create this practice with the kids. And it's just full circle constantly. If I miss, there's times obviously we go on holidays, right? Or we have a really late night, we've been out, we get home too late, and they need to just get to bed and we don't do it. Or there's times where there's a lot going on. or we've got like family visiting, or we're away, whatever it is, and we're not as consistent with the practice, or we just don't do it for a while. And I see the difference. I see the difference in them. I feel the difference within me. And I think that it's just so important. It's such an important part of it's such an important family value for us, and such an important practice that we do together. And I hope that it's something that they then continue with, and that it really helps them, and it really cements their desire and want to connect with themselves and to practice mindfulness in their adult years, because there's obviously going to come a time when they're not in our house, and I'm not putting them to bed every night. So I hope that this is something that will support them throughout their lives. Scientists have talked about this too, and I was listening to a podcast recently about this, and the idea that the first 7 years of life are the programming years, described as the time when you can really guide and nurture and educate your children. But then after age 7, they start to create their own ideas and values and things like that as well. And from a virtue standpoint, that's where the companioning comes in a little bit. It's about then guiding less and sitting back and watching more. and having the trust and faith that they'll figure it out for themselves. 7 is still a bit too young, but just to start at that point, I just feel that our mission as parents shouldn't be to raise doctors and lawyers and astronauts or even mini-me's, right? Because these children, they're not us and they don't belong to us either. But it should be to raise the next generation of authentic human beings who live and do better than us. Because I think that's what the world needs from our children, for responsible, spiritual people who grow to be dynamic innovators, inspiring leaders, and hopefully powerful change makers. I think that's what the world needs and is going to need when our kids are older.
I was just thinking about that 7 years that you were talking about and how long it's been for me to have this transformation. It really started in 2015, unwinding myself. And if I think about it, it's the end of 2022 while this recording is happening. It's been like 7 years and I'm fully unwound on certain areas for sure in my life. And it's interesting to reflect on that, to see once you get programmed, then you need to unprogram yourself for just as long.
Yeah.
I think change is slow, it's steady, incremental. And I think when you're in the thick of it, you could ask yourself, what's the point? I don't see any changes and stuff like that. But over time, you're like, wow, I'm not the same person as I was 7 years ago. And how did I even get here? Just step one night at a time. Where are you instilling these qualities, these virtues in your kids? And it's literally all that you have to do. I'm sure this was a very inspiring podcast for people to listen to hear your own journey. And I love the whole aspect of you acknowledging that it first starts with you. It's a huge thing we talk about here in Yoga Avec Moi, where everything that you want in your children, you need to embody it first. If you don't have it, they don't see the mirror in which they can learn it. But if you figured it out and you finally learned how to do something, then you can show them and they will be able to adopt to it. A lot of times, if there's something that we wanted them to adopt, we realize that we need to be the mirror first. And when we start working on it, we realize how much work it is to actually be that thing that you want them to be. Then you almost you grow in compassion when they don't behave in that way, because you realize I can't even do that. I know I'm from the air, just expecting them to do something like that. But yeah. Was there anything else that you wanted to add before we end off?
No, I just think that this is all part of a journey. We're all on this journey. And I love that you always talk about process. It's a really good reminder for me, because I think in my formative years, I really focused very much on the destination. And sometimes when I'm talking about the kids' practices and things we do, and somebody might say to me, oh, wow, I wonder who your kids are going to be when they're older, or what they're going to be like, or any of those things. And what's really interesting is that even though I'm doing all of this work with them, and we're all doing this work together, I don't really think about who they're going to be or what their future is going to look like. Because I think just being present in the moment and consistent with this practice is enough.
Yeah. It's huge.
All the faith and the trust that I need, and realizing that this is part of a bigger picture. At the end, we're all in this together. And when I say we, I mean we, you, me, the kids, our Virtues family, our community, everyone. We're all one team, one community, one society, one world. And I really believe that true change on the outside really does start from within, and sitting with ourselves in meditation and reflection, and becoming just more aware of our interactions and actions and words and thoughts and moods, and of who we are, just really being aware every day of who am I today? How did I make people feel? How did I contribute to the betterment of the world? And how can I be better tomorrow? I think a really common thing is to really have regret and to really beat ourselves up about the things that we didn't do and the things that didn't go well. And I talk about my golden hour in this routine, but we have many non-golden hours in the day.
Yeah.
We face many challenges and there's tantrums and there's difficult things that happen. And as great as it is to have the intention to be consistent on all of those things, sometimes things don't happen. But the thing that is really important for me to remember, and for all of us to remember when we're parenting, is that every day is a new day, right? So whatever you did today, that is not a reflection of who you are tomorrow. So if you can just take the time to look back on the day and how that day went for yourself, with your children, the day can be radically different tomorrow. You can start again. There's like a reset. Actually, I visualize this sometimes if I'm having a really challenging time at home, and I kept visualizing a reset button. So for me,
I want to hit it right now. I already thought of it and I want to hit it. Boop. Yeah. It's done.
But like, I visualize it. For me, what's powerful is visualizing it as like the third eye. And so we say that's the third eye and also the soul, right? The window, the eyes to the soul. And so if I'm really feeling I want tomorrow to be really different, I just like press boop, and it's a reset.
Third eye press. I love it. I'm totally gonna do that. Beep, 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 beep.
And then tomorrow is a different day.
Or a different hour or a different minute. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I'm gonna just need to keep my hand on my forehead right now and just reset, reset, reset.
But it's important not to forget. Like by reset, I don't mean forget. The reflection that comes before it is very important and really powerful. And then the reset is more of just like forgiving yourself and giving yourself a second chance and an opportunity to do things differently.
Wow. That's going to be really powerful. I'm going to definitely put that in my back pocket. Because I think in a day, I always say this to my therapist, that I sometimes wake up every morning crying. There's just always something for me to be sad about. And then the rest of the day, I'm fine. But it's every morning that I wake up in tears or I'm just processing the day. It seems very quick how much I get over the thing. And just the suggestion of having this reset button, realize that when I get sad, I don't need to be sad all day. Not the whole day is ruined. It's just a couple hours or even minutes. It's not even half an hour where that emotion is able to rectify itself or work itself out in a way. But I think just having this whole concept of a reset button is, I think that's really empowering, because like another meditation that I do actually right now is literally that when a thought comes into your mind that you don't want, is to literally just say change. Nope. Like when a negative thought comes to your mind, you're like, change. Nope. You're like, nuh-uh.
Yeah.
But I could just do the third eye thing and be like, change, done. Boop.
Yeah.
Have a physical part on my body to literally press it. I like that a lot.
Because sometimes people really fear change, right? Like change can be really difficult, right? As well, sometimes, or sometimes it's hard. Sometimes it's difficult to acknowledge that something needs to change. And then also the fear of the unknown, the fear of what will happen if we do change things.
I think that's huge. Yeah.
So maybe, which is why like maybe then the reset button, I don't know, maybe we could remove that kind of anxiety.
Oh, totally. It would be, I think that's like revolutionary. The concept of just knowing that at any moment you can change the feelings that you're experiencing. And like that I think is true empowerment. I can't think of anything else that's like more empowering than that anything that comes up, anything that is there, like all of it just seems, it's just very empowering to think that at any moment of time you can change your emotion, your mindset, your thinking process. Because I think what happens if we like meet a challenge, which I think we all do like on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
And that is like, if we know this kind of tool that we can change it at any moment, then I think we would be so empowered that we would know that we didn't have to, like, if we got into a corner of somewhere, then we didn't have to be there. We can change it if we want. But yeah, no, I think that's like tremendously powerful to have something like that in the back of your mind, that we are never victims of our circumstance and that we have the power to be able to change whatever we want. We just need to decide. It's as easy as we just need to decide and to choose, and then to use conscious and wise movements and actions thereafter to try to bring that about. Because I think if we're trying to like change like a negative situation with more negativity, that's not going to help. Like, obviously you need to adjust yourself, like reorient, put yourself in the right pocket, dust yourself off, and then go. And you still need to do those things that if someone projected onto you or they said some negative things to you, like you first need to wipe yourself off and then reset. Otherwise, you reset with the muck still on your face. Yeah. Oh my gosh, what a thing to leave people with in the ending. I love that. Boop, guys, just press your forehead and everything is going to be reset. Boop. Love it. Thank you so much for joining us, my love, and sharing with us your story of your birth, of like your pregnancy, what you do with your kids, and how you start with yourself with everything. I think that is really a valuable service for people. So thank you so much for coming on to the YAM podcast.
Thank you. It's so refreshing and it's so powerful and valuable to have your voice to connect with, and for all the mamas and everyone else out there. I'm very happy to be part of this community.
I'm just really happy that I'm going to be speaking to you soon, that I'm not going to worry about this is the last conversation, because sometimes it's like really sad for me that I'm like, I like interview someone and get to talk to them. And then I'm like, oh, wow, this is so cool. And then I don't get to build the relationship with them. Yeah. But I know that's not the case with us. And I'm just really grateful for that we can just say till next time on this podcast and not goodbye. So till next time.
I'll see you at Gita.
I'll see you definitely at Gita. All right. I'll see you guys, the audience, later, and see you in the next episode. Bye, guys. Hi, everyone. Hope you guys enjoyed that podcast. Let me know in the comments below which aspect you took away from today. Being like, oh, I've never heard of something like that being shared before by a mom, or oh my gosh. We would love it for you to join us in the YAM Podcast blog. In the comment section, that's where you know we're going to be at, to be like, hey, that was an amazing episode. Stop it. Or that was something I really resonated with. And I want you to have this kind of accent when you type, okay? Because I want you to channel that little valley girl and just be like, oh my gosh, that was amazing. So cool. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed that. Hope you found it helpful. See you in the next episode. Peace.